Bronwyn is CEO of Grit and here to talk to us about a vision for growth. Nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you
Thank you
too.
very much for being here. Now, Bronwyn has a really interesting story. She has built a Pan-African dual-listed property company with a $600 million value in just 3 years. Quite incredible. Now, this is widely talked about, and you talk about it online and on your webpage. Your parents weren't able to send you to university, so you worked and studied simultaneously. You got a job straight out of school at an accounting firm, BDO, and you took a student loan which allowed you to obtain your chartered accountant degree. So you're clearly very driven. You knew what it was that you wanted to do. And I love this quote in particular from your website: when everybody else is going in the opposite direction, it is easy to follow what other people have done and have a success in following. But what is difficult is creating something new. And you really have managed to achieve that with your business. You forged ahead into Africa when others were perhaps looking at Eastern Europe. So just explain a bit more about your business and how you've made it grow so quickly in such a short amount of time and really have the courage of your convictions.
Thank you, and apologies again for rushing in. That was, I think, a 2.5-hour trip from Heathrow, so it was amazing.
Never a joy.
Yeah, so apologies about that. You know, from my side, and thank you for having us. I think it's really tremendous that something like this has been put together, and that as a woman from Africa, I'm able to be given a platform to talk about what we do. But you know, our business, sort of being a chartered accountant and having real estate is really my passion. You know, a lot of the South African businesses were really looking at alternative investments, having the ability to extract hard currency. And everybody was going to markets like the UK, Australia, Eastern Europe. A lot of the businesses were going. And we decided that we were part of the African continent and we should understand Africa better than anybody. Being South Africans, I have to often remind South Africans that they are part of Africa. And that we would look north. And effectively, we went into Morocco, which was the first South African business to ever invest in Morocco. And at that time, it was Morocco and Mauritius. And I think somebody said, well, what's the commonality? Do they both start with M? And possibly that was it. But the reality is that we saw an opportunity to build a platform on a market which I call the last frontier. Ultimately, where is their growth? And where will the growth be into the future? You know, to have everybody chasing the same thing, for me, is just astounding. And I often think maybe it's a South African mentality, but South Africans love piling into a market and competing against each other, and it's very male-driven and very ego. And now they're all piling into Eastern Europe, and everybody's like, you know, this crazy world of just really taking each other out. And, you know, we said, well, why not look at Africa? Why not look at these markets with this high growth? And Africa is a very strange place in itself outside of South Africa. So it's not corporate that we understand. Real estate is very emotional to people. And they've been in their family for years. You know, they don't want to sell real estate to anybody. They don't even necessarily need the money. So they're looking for an emotional connection with somebody. And that relationship has really been at the core of our business and what we've done across Africa.
Now, you talked about the sort of male-dominated sphere of what you do. How have you challenged that and disrupted it, really, in a way?
Well, just to give you a bit of context to that, so there are 50 listed REITs in South Africa and 3 female executives. There are 15 female executives on 50 listed REITs in South Africa. So it just gives you an understanding of what a male-dominated environment it is. And what it is, it's traditionally been an old boys club. And it's quite fun watching the old boys club from the side. But, you know, it really has been support of a particular sort of male individual, guys that have been in the industry for a long time, and investors have just followed them everywhere. And it's interesting now because in South Africa, the whole real estate market has changed. We've had one of the biggest real estate players actually not have such a good time. And, you know, you just see where all the fund managers were piled in because it was the person and the individual and the aggression, how they've actually lost a lot of money now. So, you know, firstly, it was having a look at this environment. Secondly, having a passion for real estate and saying, actually, let's do what nobody else has done. Let's try and not compete. Let's try and set something. Let's pioneer into these markets. And it was interesting because sort of 4 years of building this business, I remember our biggest investor, which is a big pension fund across Africa and very male-dominated and that, and we put this business together, and he looked at me and he said, Bronwyn, can you actually drink beer with those Nigerians? And I thought, what a strange comment. And if anybody knows me, I probably can drink beer better than he can. But the reality is that that's what it was in his mind. You know, how are you gonna penetrate this market where it's all about, you know, the men and the rah-rah? And the fact of the matter is that you know, we didn't make a lot of noise about it. All we did is went out there and we understood what people really wanted, and we understood what they really wanted to do with their real estate. And we started 3.5 years ago, assets of just over $120 million, and we've built the business to just over 600 and hopefully doubling that in the next couple of years. And it's all been about that. In my darkest hours, it's been about the relationships, it's been about the people that have helped us get things over the line. And it hasn't been about corporatizing Africa at all. You know, as I've mentioned, you can't go into these countries like Ghana where there are people that are wealthy in their own right and say, I'm a corporate and I'm bringing my corporate ways and I'm going to corporatize all of you. You know, those are the companies that haven't had success in these African countries. You know, it's the number of weddings you attend, the daughters, the christenings, all of those things. That's what people want to see. They want to see you as a human being. And some people actually just don't have time for that. You know, a lot of the big, you know, sort of corporate big REITs out of South Africa actually couldn't be bothered, to be honest, which is fine. It gives us more opportunity, and it's going to take them years and years to realize that actually where else are they going to grow? You know, it's just so oversaturated in these markets and so over competitive, which means that prices are just ridiculously, real estate has become so expensive that they're not going to have a choice. And I wonder by that stage when they realize actually what these markets are going to be like for them. So it'll be interesting to see.
You said that a lot of the secret of your success is by recruiting excellent staff, and you only take people with a passion for the business. Now, everybody here, you know, a lot of people, different stages of their businesses, but everybody wants to recruit people and have a team behind them that support them. But it's one thing saying it, it's another really managing to select the right people. What have you done to make sure that you've taken on the right people and seen them grow within the business?
So again, you know, Africa is complex because, as I've mentioned, relationships are all about time with people. So I live on an aeroplane, my key staff live on aeroplanes, and it's not glamorous travel. I mean, you're traveling into Ghana, you're traveling into Nigeria, you're going into Morocco. This is hard travel. And often my husband over the years have said, you know, do you drug the water at the office? It's very strange because these people are like, they're so obsessed with what you're doing in Africa and everything else. And that's what I've realized is that you need to find people that love Africa or love your business for whatever reason they might have, but they have that same drive to make a difference in these regions. And 99% of that we've been successful. There's always that 1% that you look and you think, how did I employ that staff member? And I must be careful because one of my staff members are sitting here today. So
it's not them.
No, he's still here. So, but the reality is that we've built up a business where people have been as aggressively involved with Africa in their history. They've also tried to swim upstream, but have failed because they've been in environments where people have said, you're doing the wrong thing, you should be going into Eastern Europe. And I managed to get a core set of people around me, and there were 5 of us when we started the business. I think our head count is now we're almost over 60. There were 5 of us that were just so passionate about Africa. And, you know, it really is, I'll call it the fire in the belly, and Kai will laugh at me, one of my staff members sitting here, because I talk about that fire in your belly. It's really wanting to do what you do every day, to get on a plane, to have my 6-year-old hanging on my leg again yesterday. You know, it's hard. Those things are hard. And as a woman, it's hard because children need their mother. You know, as I say, my children are starting to call me Auntie Bron. I heard they're forgetting who the mother is. But the reality is that it's hard to do these things, and you need people that are as passionate. And actually, you have this concept, and I've got a really good advisor that says this concept about drinking the Kool-Aid. And if you know anything about that, it was a rock band that traveled around years ago and laced all the water that all the fans were drinking with LSD. And either you were drinking the Kool-Aid or you didn't know what the hell everybody was going on about at this party. And you always use that concept with us. It's around either you are gratified and will love what we do, otherwise you can't work for us. It's really just so simple.
So you've listed very successfully. Congratulations. But give us a brief description of your growth journey before that, the various funding rounds, and how the business grew as a result.
So I think lessons learned, because I come from a listed environment out of South Africa, and my relationship sat there. When I put together at Delta Africa, at that stage we rebranded to Grit, I obviously I had the relationships, and I thought, let's just list this thing. Probably a lesson learned. You know, you have to be very careful about building a business in the listed space, especially in a complex environment, because people are ruthless. Shareholders are ruthless. When you make mistakes, which are justifiable mistakes because it's African, it takes time, investors are really ruthless. So maybe going back slightly, and I'll never change what I've done, but lessons learned is that I'd probably keep that business unlisted for a period of time, really just get the complexity understood and the business built up to size, But we didn't do that. We listed it straight off, and we listed at that stage in Mauritius and Johannesburg, both on the main boards. And it was very complex. You know, you had a fund management world out of South Africa who knew me. They knew me. They had a bit of trust. But again, I was this woman, crazy woman, saying I'm going to Africa, and everybody else was going into Eastern Europe. And we had a couple of them support us. The capital raise was always very difficult, very complex. A lot of other REITs had gone into Africa and failed, especially the big boys. You know, nobody looks at themselves and saying, I could be the failure. No, but Africa was the failure. So they came back with this message. So it was very complex. And even the decision to come to Mainboard London was a decision that even to the last minute, I actually wondered if it was the right decision because it was that difficult. You know, not only are you dealing with the complexity of Africa and really trying to, you're sitting in front of a fund manager out of the UK, and he's so conservative, and yes, you're coming to the main board, but Africa, you know, are you know, really, that part, where's actually Mozambique? So you're having to go back to the beginning and actually explain what Africa is. And I mean, some of our investors, I think I had 6 meetings with them, you know, our sponsors will tell you, it really was such a process to get these people over the line. And then in life, it's about timing. So if we had tried to do that today where emerging markets, frontier markets are, remember we listed on the 31st of July, and I had so many people saying, Bronwyn, stop being so impatient, just wait till September, wait till September. The reality is if we waited till September, we would never got it over the line. So
why
just because emerging markets have crashed.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, and that's again, in life sometimes it's about timing. So it's about having people believe in your story, having investors to support you, but it's also the environment you're operating it in. We work in such a complex environment because not only are emerging market, frontier markets challenged, but the actual markets like the UK, the US are challenged. So you've got all of these macros working against you all the time. So for us, the London listing, very relieved to have it over the line, but I must tell you, it was hugely touch and go. And I think what the platform we'll be able to build on now is fantastic for the business.
But you clearly have the courage of your convictions. You're not only passionate, but really know your business inside out. And as you said, people were saying, just wait, just wait. What gives you that sort of strength to just go ahead when perhaps others might be advising you against doing what you want to do? And do you ever doubt yourself?
That's a good one. The early hours of the morning. You know, the reality is, I think, and a lot of people probably in this room are similar, when you're so passionate and you give everything to your business, and you've got this army of people that have now become so core to the business. I think I've never had self-doubt like I did through the London listing process. I mean, 48 hours before, when we had one of our big shareholders to have a bit of a wobble, and I just thought about everybody has thrown everything into this, including myself, including my family. If you ask my 10-year-old daughter what GRIT stands for, she'll tell you guts, resilience, innovation, tenacity. She made me come speak to a whole class the other day. The kids are gritified. My husband, the poor guys, his cycling kit's got grit all over it. You know, the reality is that when you are all by yourself and you think that you've sold this and you've sold your passion, you've got all these people on the line, and if this thing doesn't get over the line. So that self-doubt is continuous. But again, you know, I know my business and the people around me, and we know what we are trying to do, and we know the success it can be there. We just need people to be educated around Africa, and that you are able to mitigate a lot of the perceived risks that terrify people around the African continent. So for me, I think there will always be self-doubt, but you always have to have that passion and motivation to really believe in your business and your story, and really why you've put it together, actually. So I really look forward to taking GRIT to the next level.
Before we let you go, what is your kind of key piece of advice to the people in this room who are several years behind you but hoping to achieve, you know, some of the success that you have?
So I think a couple of things that I heard it mentioned earlier. What builds our business is, and I call it sort of a couple of tiers. One is a talented team. You don't have to have hundreds of people, but you have to have talent around you. You know, have people around you that make up for your weaknesses. You know, the people around me make me look good. And that's ultimately, when people are sometimes insecure, they don't do that. So get really talented people around you. And really, it's the core of relationships. There'll be people that you have to call on in the darkest of hours to say, help us get this thing over the line. And if those people don't know you and inherently don't understand the core of who you are in your business, they will not be there. I never say, and when saying about networking, don't knock on people's people's doors for money. They're not going to give you money. Build a relationship with them. Let them understand who you are. And then you sort of coax them into saying, come on, back the story. So for me, it's It's the core of the team. It's the core of really believing in what you do. Because I promise you, when your children, as some of you might have, are hanging on your leg and you think, am I doing this again? If you don't inherently have that fire in your belly and believe what you're going to do and believe in your convictions of your business and your story, you're not going to be able to do it. So it really is the core of those three things. And really just live your passion as much as you can. I think that's the big thing. And it will never be easy, I can promise you. It will never be easy. People look at our success and say, wow. And somebody's saying, I have to put it into a book, because they're saying the stories you tell, people won't believe you, that they're not true, that actually happened, but they really did happen to us. So, the fact of the matter, it will be that hard, I can tell you. And you just need to keep pushing.
Bronwyn, I wish we had time to hear your stories. Unfortunately, we don't. Your passion and energy are absolutely infectious. I can't believe you've just got off a plane. It's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.